Okay, episode 7, Lovecraft Country, I Am. It's a lot going on, and I mean a lot because I had to do a lot of digging and searching for the clues and meanings and all the hidden stuff. So let's get into it real quick. So in the beginning, Hippolyta is trying to fix the Ori. Then it goes 3 days prior, Hippolyta shows up to the burned down lodge with Dee. And then Hippolyta finds a piece of George's, the front page of one of his comic books. So she knows that he was there. Okay, so then we get back to it. Hippolyta adjusts the axis on the Ori and gets it to operate. It reveals a key with coordinates. The message inscribed says, "Every beginning is in time and every limit of extension in space." It is from the critique of a pure person, written 1881 by Emmanuel Kent. Ruby then sees Christina. Now, the whole Ruby aspect, I'm tired of Ruby. I really am. Her story arc, after the last episode, I'm okay with it. I'm done with Ruby. I really don't want to see Ruby anymore moving forward, but it is what it is. So Ruby sees Christina drawing the blood of victims for a new potion. William's body is one of the victims. Christina gives Ruby her backstory. William taught her magic and gave her the spell that she uses to turn into other people. Christina then tells Ruby her family is involved with the Book of Names. Letty has a nightmare after seeing Hannah in the Burning Lodge. Tick has translated half of the book. Letty reveals she had the same dream of Hannah and that Hannah had the Book of Names. Alright, so Tick's mom had a cousin that survived the riots in Tulsa. Then we go to Montrose's place. Sammy spent the night at Montrose's. Sammy had run into one of Montrose's neighbors. They have a fight. So what Montrose likes to do, he likes to push people away when they get too close. Tick and Letty then arrive and see Montrose holding Sammy's wrist. Tick calls him the F word and says, but then Montrose says, he takes off his shirt and says, "I'm still your daddy." Montrose tells Tick that his mother knew. Tick leaves. Tick says Montrose beat him because he was conflicted. And he didn't understand why he was being beaten, but basically, it's just like in the movie, what the movie with Kevin Spacey, when the boy's neighbor, his father is really manly, and he was beating the son because the father was secretly gay and was projecting that onto the son and was beating it out of him because he was conflicted about his own sexuality, even though the son was not gay. Same thing here. Montrose was conflicted with his own sexuality, projected it onto Tick, and thus took it out on Tick. His frustrations, basically. So then, Ruby babysits Dee while Hippolyta leaves. Tick leaves for St. Louis. Letty and Ruby make peace. Hippolyta is off to Kansas and sees a black woman riding a motorcycle. Represents freedom, but the black woman on the motorcycle, I believe, was Bessie Stringfield. She was called the Motorcycle Queen of Miami. She was the first black person to ride a motorcycle cross country. Tick arrives in St. Louis looking for his cousin Ethel. She died. Bertie mentions a family book that was burned in the riots. Hippolyta arrives in Mayfield. Letty is having pregnancy symptoms, and then the Ori begins to spin. While looking at family photos, Tick notices a similar birthmark on a relative that he has on his back. Okay. Letty then calls Tick to tell him Hippolyta had been hiding the Ori, and Ruby is eavesdropping. Hippolyta finds the key opening at the observatory. She calculates the speed of the planets that revolve around the sun. And then 2 cops show up and find Hippolyta and try to turn off the machine. Tick shows up to fight off the cops. The portal is opened. Tick throws one of the cops in, and then Hippolyta is sucked into the portal itself. Hippolyta is then sucked into a portal, is greeted by 2 robotic beings. Then she wakes up with 2 gems implanted into her wrist and is met by a melanated Afro female being who looks similar to Garnet. Garnet from, if you watch Steven Universe was a popular Cartoon Network show. It was really popular with the queer folk. But Garnet was the sister with the third eye. Ruby was on the third eye. The big afro played by the singer Estelle. Okay. Hippolyta tries to escape and is then again met by the afro being. It tells her to name herself And who do you want to be? Hippolyta is then transported into 1920s Paris, where she becomes a backup singer to Josephine Baker. She then lives the life of as one of the dancers. It's a very liberal atmosphere. There's a slight shot of two women kissing. It's, like I said, very liberal. Okay. Josephine takes a liking to Hippolyta. Hippolyta reveals she hates white folks, and she hates that they make her feel small. Another portal opens up, and she is now part of the Dahomey Amazons. You know, the Dahomey Amazons, the West African, very fierce warriors, female warriors. She passes her training. They engage in a fight with Confederate soldiers, and then she is transported to another portal she's with George. Now here's where some feminism comes in. She then tells him about the mini world theory, which is the multiverse for us that we would know about. We call it the multiverse. Here's the feminist moment. Hippolyta reveals she's angry because she had to shrink herself in a man's world, patriarchy, and further blames George for having her to shrink herself even more during the marriage. George then apologizes for making her shrink, for making her have their family, and for him having to go off to do what he needed to do, which was go work a job to take care of the family. It's a backhanded diss, basically. Like, so, I don't want to get into all that. Then they explore a planet together. As they're exploring the planet together, there's narration in the background. It's from the 1972 movie Space is the Place by the jazz musician Sun Ra. Sun Ra is the mentor to Earth, Wind, and Fire. That's where they got their knowledge of self and their aesthetics and their imagery from. They got it from Sun Ra because he was their mentor. Hippolyta then meets the Afro being again. So the Afro being, her name is Serafina, aka Beyond Say, French. Capital C apostrophe EST, and if you spell the words out, it's Beyond Say, Beyonce. That was lame, but let's go on. And is offered integration into their society, but she chooses to go back into her world to finish help raising Dee. Tick then shuts down the machine and takes a copy of Lovecraft Country book before making his escape. And then laying under one of the dead cops that was shot by Hippolyta is Dee's comic book, Orinthian Blue. So when the cops show up, they're going to see the book, they're going to track it down to Dee, they're going to assume Dee's the killer, blah, 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 blah. So you see where this is going. Well, I mean, this is another female empowering episode. It's good to see you had black aliens, right? That's what everybody wants to see, black aliens, and particularly a female, because, I guess that imagery has more resonance with people, that it being a female than a male. So, I'm done with Ruby's arc. I really am. I don't care for Ruby anymore. That's my only gripe at this point. Tick he's spiraling out of control. I think they're kind of wasting his arc right now. So I hope in episode 8 they kind of redeem Tick, and then the pregnancy thing. So that means the baby's going to have some type of magical powers, something. That's it. You guys have a good one. Peace.